Welcome to my talk. This evening, I'm going to talk you a bit about local on Android. So I'll be talking about what's a local, what's behind it, and how you can use it on your Android apps, and how you can handle localizations to translate your application in multiple language. So a bit about me, I'm Julien Salvi. I'm a senior Android developer at Aircall, a startup based in Paris, in France. I've been into the Android world for 10 years now, starting with Froyo back in the days. I'm an organizer at the Paris Android user group, listening pop music and drinking IPA's beer. And you can find me on Twitter at Julien Salvi. So for tonight, for first, I'm going to expose what is a local and what is a local on Android and what's behind it. And then I'll show you the local in action. So what is a local on Android and how you can handle localization in your applications. And finally, I'll talk a bit about the common pitfalls using local in your apps. So some of them can be very, very tricky. So first, let's talk a bit about local. So local, if you look at the documentation of Android, you will have this a bit of this explanation. So it's an object that represents a specific geographical, political, or cultural region. An operation that requires a local to perform its task. It's called a local sensitive, and it uses the local to tailor information for the user. So basically, to sum up this, so it's all about to target the right content to the user. So it's about the language, it's about the country, and it's all about giving the right typo, the right information about sensitive case text. So for local on Android, sure you all played, you all end up using some local in your application. You can get the default local of your application by getting the local get default. So it will get the default local of your app, or you can build your all local with the language tag, which have to be the IETF BCP 47 language. So it has to be the right definition of that type. So you can combine language type and country tag to build your local. Or you can use the builder for much more complex local tags. And you'll see later that might be a bit tricky here. You can end up like building a very long tags for your local. And also Android provides some local on the local.java. So you can use the local root for non-neutral local sensitive operation. If you don't want to target any language, any country, you can use the local.root. Or there's some already predefined here, so you can target French, you can target English, Italian, Italy. So some of them target only language or language and country, because you can have some slight difference languages from a country to another. For example, there's some differences for the French spoken in France and the French spoken in Canada. And since API 24, so you can get the local of your system. So you can get all the language you set on your system. So prior Android, the API 24, it was only one language, but after the API 24, you can set multiple language in your devices. So you can set your first language will be Italian, then I can fall back to Spanish, and then I will fall back again to the English language. So you can use from the API 24 the first one, and if you need to go backward and use from the API, for example, from KitKat, you can use the configuration compat local to get the language of your device. And of course, also you can get all the languages you are supporting on your application and on your device with the local list default. So local are based on languages and countries only. Well, it's a bit more complex than just languages and countries. So to build like a full language tag, you have sometimes to take into account language, some extension of the language, a script, a region, a variant, an extension, and sometimes a private use. So it's a combination of those tags, and I will dig a bit into that. So I'll explain which tag, the meaning of each tag. So for example, a tag can be Chinese spoken in Taiwan and written in Pinyin. So ZH will mean from Chinese, LATN will be the script. So for written in the Latin language, TW for the region, so it will target the Taiwan country, and the pinyin will be the variant of the script. Or you can use some another custom tag. For example, if you want to display Thai numbers in your Thai application, so it will use the Thai language with the extension for using Thai numbers. So I'll explain all the tags here. So the primary tag will be the language. So it will target the language you want to implement in your application. There is an ISO file where you can find all the tag for each country and each languages. So for example, FR for French, EN for English, or HI for Hindi. Then you'll have the xlang tag, so a bit of a variant, an extension of the language. So the secondary language subtag, and it's associated to the primary tag. So for example, if it's a variant of Cantonese Chinese or Gulf Arabic. Then you will add the script. Again, it's a four-letter script, and it describes how the text is written. So it's LATN for the Latin alphabet. It can be Cyrillic for CYRL, or HANS for the simplified Chinese. Then this is what we are using the most here. So the first tag and the region tag, mostly on Android. The two country or free numeric area code. So it defines the country you want to tag. For example, CA for Canada, GE for Georgia, or 029 for the Caribbean. So on Android, you'll mostly use the language tag and the region one to implement some translation in your applications. Then sometimes you can find some variant here, so it's very rare, and you mostly won't end up using some variant or extension of previous use, but it's just for the knowledge and know how a complex language tag can be. So subtags represented some dialects or script variations that it's not clearer than a combination of language tag, the language tab, the script tag, and the region tag. So, for example, in Slovenia, you can find some Nadiza dialect. So you will use the variant Nadis, or for the German language in Switzerland, you can use this variant called 1901, and it's come from a variant that Swiss German use, and it's a reform they implement, they give in 1901. The extension and that use, it's very uncommon. Just for example, here it's a very uncommon Dutch tag and a very uncommon English tag. So it's very for very tiny stuff like the tiny numbers. So you won't end up using these ones. So now let's see how you can use local in your Android app. So first, let's talk a bit about language resolution on Android. So when you are developing an Android app, you'll go to your resource folder and you will end up using some values. So you have your values folder, and you will end up adding some strings, some dimension, extra. And for targeting other language, so you will have to create folders depending on the language or depending on the language and the country. So if I switch to Android Studio, here, for example, I have my res folder. If I want to add another directory, so I'll create new Android resource directory, and then I choose local here. And for example, here I can choose any language I want. For example, if I want to implement some, let's say, Spanish from Argentina, so it will add the R, little r before the country tag. It's not very similar to the language tag, the country, and then the language and then the country. So then, if I create a new one, yep, you'll see there is a new folder. So it targets Spanish, that's Spanish spoken in Argentina. So let's get back to the slides here. This one here. And so you can, it's mostly a two characters for defining the language. But since the API 21, you can define a free language, free characters language, for example, the Hydrogen language, if you want to implement that one. And it's only available from the API 21. So inside your resource and your value folder, you'll have your string XML. So here you'll define all your translation. So for example, a string that can be translated will be a classic one. You just define the name and then the string you want. with maybe another text to be added dynamically. But if you want this string to be non-translatable, you'll add the attribute translatable false, and this string will be unique across your application. And then you can translate also all the stuff you have in your strings.xml, such as the strings array or the plurals. Well, the plurals are not handled the same way in the different languages. So now let's say we add the implementation of these string resources in your application. So I have targeted French from France, German, Spanish from Argentina, and the Arabian language. And on my device, I have set French Canadian as a first language. Then I fall back to Italian. Then I fall back to Spanish from Argentina, and then I fall back to English. So prior to Android 7, the resolution will fail. So you won't have the French the French translation in your application, even if you're implementing the French France translation, because the resolution here it will match exactly the same language tag, for the device language and the device and the application language. So if it's not the same, it's gonna end up to the default one. So here you will end up displaying some so the default you have maybe some English. So but since Android 7, it's there. Android 7 here you can implement multiple languages. It will be a success. So the resolution change, and it looks first at the parent tag. So we implementing some French from France, and in the device you have French from Canada. So the parent tag is the same, and it will end up using the French the French Canadian the French from France, even if it's set as French from Canada. Then, so how you can use local on Android, and where you can end up using this local on Android. So you can, for example, use local for capitalize some text, because, for example, in Turkish there is a dot on the I when it's capitalized. When it's not capitalized, it's in uppercase. It's used for currencies. If you want to target the currency of a country, for example, here it's a big number in yen from China. It's also used for writing the numbers, depending on the country and depending on the language. And it also used for formatting dates, especially if you write the full date. For example, if you write the month or the days in letters, so it will end up writing the right translation for the month or for the day. And what's up on the code? So on the code, for example, if you define a simple date format, you will pass a local, for example, a local French. Then you will have the month written in French here. And then, for example, if you want to uppercase the text in Turkish here, which is thank you, You will end up using local with the Turkish local, with the Turkish language and the Turkish country. And for numbers, for example, I forgot about that. So yeah, if we be written for the date like this, for the Turkish uppercase, thank you, it will be this. And for the numbers, it will be written like this if you use English, and if you use the non-sensitive local, the root locale, it will be also like English formatted numbers. And for currencies, there's a lot of differences across countries. So, for example, in Germany, it's using dots between the thousands, using the euro at the end of the numbers. If you want to target the China currency, it will put the China currency at the beginning of the sentence. And the last one, the little symbol is the symbol of the universal currency. So as it's local sensitive, it uses a universal currency here. So now you are all set for handling localization in your application. So here I'll talk a bit about Lokalize in order to handle translation and language switch in your application. So what's Lokalize? Lokalize allows you to manage translation and handle language switch in your application. So it supports also dynamic updates. It means that if you implement Lokalize in your application, you can, on the platform of Lokalize, update in real time your translation, and it will be automatically updated in your application without any updates. Also, it's a cross-platform tool, so these translations can be used for your Android team, iOS team, and you can use the same keys between the team. So it's very cool when you have multiple products and you can maintain only one translation for all your applications and all your teams. Also, it can be fully automated with your CI/CD, and so it can send up some nightly pull requests if there is some new translation in your localized dashboard. But along that, there is other alternatives for Lokalize, and you can use, for example, Phrase App, Transifex, or SmartLink. So here are focused on Lokalize and how you can implement it and use it on your application. So you just have to implement add this to your Gradle build. So it will set up your dependencies. Then on your application.kt, on the onCreate, you will have to initialize the Lokalize instance. You'll pass the context, and then you'll pass the localized token and your project ID. Then, if you have a base activity, if you have multiple activities, so you need to wrap the attached base context using the localized context wrapper in order to dispatch the translation and the switch at runtime of your language. And if you are developing your application and you are going to the settings and you have an entry here for switching language, so I don't know, you implemented the Spanish, German, and English. You have to set, you have to call localize.setLocale, and you'll pass here the language tag and the region tag you want to target in order to apply the new language to your application. And if you want to know more about the Lokalize and CI/CD implementation, my colleague wrote a very nice article about how you can achieve it. So the Medium link is here. It's a very, very good article. So now let's talk about the common pitfalls, how you can avoid it without any fear. So first, just to warn you, just beware of the third-party libraries. Third-party libraries can bring some unwanted strings to your application, unwanted translation especially. And so what happens if unsupported string resources are added to your application? Let's say you as a string developer, so mint as r.string.abc string, so it means for developer, translated in many languages. Our application supports English by default, French and German. What's going to be the value is the strings if the string if we switch the device to Italian language. If you don't trim your resources or don't do some app bundle to avoid multiple like other strings, and indeed your the string will be displayed in Italian. Using third-party library even can bring some translation from other languages in your other language, so it can be very confusing for the user, and you should avoid that. And I'll show you how you can do it. So yeah, I was talking about bringing third-party library without control can lead into multiple language texts. First advice, make sure to use English as default in your string, and how we can add some restriction here without all the stuff of streaming or of streaming, restricting with app bundle. So when you implement the on your Android Gradle, so you have a default config, and then you can set the resource configs for the language is here. So here you will put all the language you support in your application. And if you have if you add a new language to your application, be sure to add the new language also here, or you won't find the translation in your application, and it won't be translated. So be sure to define all the language you want to support in your application in this one. Then there is the app local versus device local. So the local get default is there to get the application language. Most of the case, local get default will also get the device language, but it's not always the case. Especially if you switch language at runtime, your application language will change, but the device language will stay the same. So if you use get default to get the device language, it will be wrong, and you will have the wrong language as the device language didn't change. So because the local get default is the current value of the default local for the instance of the JVM, and it's not the instance of your world devices or world device. So be sure to know the difference here. Use the local get default to only get your application language, and if you want to get the language of your device, be sure to use the resources .get system configuration and then get the local or get this one with the configuration compat. And also you have to fill the web view on the final part here. I know web view, it's a bit tricky, it's a bit a mess. And starting with Android 7, Google decided to change the way web view is launched, and now it uses Google Chrome. So here, the big thing about local, especially if you handle language switch in your application. So opening a web view will revert the application local of your application. So for example, if your application support German and Spanish, you switch to Spanish, but your application, your device, for example, is in German, you will open this web view and then you go back to do whatever you want on your application, and your application will be in German. So indeed, it's an issue. This issue has already been reported by Google, but nope, rejected, because Google said in the intended behavior, it won't be fixed. So, okay, so we need to find a workaround to deal with that. And so this workaround is not very nice, but we have to do so because the issue won't be fixed by Google. So after setting the web view, for example, in your fragment or in your activity, if your application is above Android N, you can set up this small code here to get the local of your application, and then force it to the update configuration. So when you go back doing other stuff with your application, the language won't be changed. Or another approach here is to override the attached page context here. So similar to our Lokalize handle the language switch. Here it's mostly the same. So you need to override the context and inject the local you are using in your application. So if you want to know more about all the stuff about local, how to handle translation inside your application, you can go to my Medium, and I wrote an article about that called exactly this talk, Demystifying Local on Android, and also have a look at the article my colleague wrote about implementing Lokalize with your CI. If you are into some deep documentation about ISO norm codes and etc., how this norm is respected and written, take a look at the RFC documentation with the BCP for 47 tags. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk about local here. If you have any question, I'll be happy to answer.
I guess we can move to the questions section.
All right. So question. So how do you add a new string to your project? Well, as we are using Lokalize on our application, so on the Lokalize dashboard, you can enter the new keys of your new string and all the translation associated. For example, we are supporting 6 languages. Once all the keys and translation are done, you can create a pull request to your repository, and that's why we automated this with with Lokalize and Circle CI. So it will send a pull request, and then we will validate it on the morning, and we'll add. Once it's validated, we will get the new translation on the application. Do you need to restart your activity app after localization? Oh yeah, I didn't mention that, but yes. If you do some language switch, you will have to restart just your activity, but not the application itself. But yes, you will have to restart the activity for applying the new language to your screen and your application. How to localize the date input fields and input fields in general. Input date field. Means the components itself. I don't know if it's possible or not to pass a local, or it depends of the system's local. That's a really good question, and I'll dig into that later, and I will come with an answer on that. How do you test localization? So mostly here on our side, it's up to the QA to do the test run, etc. So we don't have automated tests, neither UI tests to check the translation and the localization. But that's something we can think about that in the future. Is there any challenging situation for backend communication? Well, yes, especially you can send sometimes some header that depend on the localization. If it's not the right local, for example, most of our backend targets English local. So if we don't set the right local, we will get some maybe some 404 or 500. It will depend. Yes, sometimes it can lead to some error with the backend communication. What's the performance loss for Lokalize? Initial setup. So first one, how will you check if a string fits into screen on different locale and not get ellipse size? Oh yeah, that's what happened. We had a bug like this like a couple weeks ago. So for now, it's mostly like on the QA side, they spot the bug, well, the UI bug. But with this, we should implement UI tests. Thanks to that, we'll be able to see some cutoff text or non-ellipse size text, or like button breaks.